Rory Calhoun finally talks about Randolph Scott. Rory Calhoun was born with the name Francis Timothy McCow on August 8, 1922, in Los Angeles, California. He had a really tough childhood, but he became a famous movie and TV star during Hollywood's best years. He grew up when times were hard during the Great Depression. Things were unstable, and he got in trouble with the police a lot as a teenager. By the time he was in his early 20s, he had been sent to a special jail for young people because he stole cars, and he even went to prison for stealing other things. It was a really bad time in his life that could have ruined everything. But later on, this tough past actually helped make him famous. When he finally changed his ways and fixed his life, Calhoun never hid from his past. In interviews, he talked openly about his mistakes. He often said that those hard years gave him the tough, real personality that made him such a good actor. How he got into Hollywood almost seemed like an accident, like it was meant to be, and he just had the right charm. After he got out of jail, he worked all kinds of random jobs like fixing cars, cutting down trees, and being a real cowboy. Then one day he met an actor named Alan Ladd, and that changed his whole life. Ladd's wife, Sue Carroll, helped actors get jobs. She saw something special in this tall, strong young man with amazing eyes. She offered to help him, gave him the cool name Rory Calhoun, and sent him to acting classes. After that, he became famous really fast. Rory appeared in his first movie in the early 1940s and quickly started getting roles in big movies from major studios. He was naturally athletic, had a deep voice, and looked tough and handsome, which made him perfect for cowboy movies, which everyone loved back then. He was in tons of movies in the 1950s, like The Red House from 1947, Song in My Heart from 1952, and River of No Return from 1954, where he acted with Marilyn Monroe and Robert Mitchum. People loved his calm confidence. He wasn't the type of actor who was loud or tried too hard, but his quiet strength and cool personality made everyone like him. What made Calhoun really special was that he was the real deal. A lot of other actors just pretended to be cowboys, but Rory actually was one. He knew how to ride horses, use ropes, and survive outdoors. When he starred in his popular TV show called The Texan from 1958 to 1960, people believed in him not just because he could act, but because the character was just like him in real life. The show was a big hit, and Calhoun became super famous on TV. People admired him because he seemed like a real hero and a true gentleman. Behind the camera, Calhoun lived life exactly how he wanted to. People knew him for doing things his own way, being nice to his fans, and being a loyal friend. But he also liked to have fun and got into a bit of trouble, so people thought of him as a Hollywood rebel. People who wrote gossip articles loved writing about his romantic adventures. While movie directors loved that he was reliable and professional when working, his personality was complicated. He was tough but gentle, wild but thoughtful, and that made him both a great actor and a legend. When cowboy movies stopped being as popular in the late 1960s, Calhoun was smart and changed with the times. He took roles on TV shows, smaller movies, and later even in funny movies and action films. He was in movies like Motel Hell from 1980. This showed he could change and surprise his fans even when he got older. Because he was willing to try new things and adapt, he kept getting jobs for many decades. Long after lots of other actors from his time had stopped working, Rory Calhoun's personal life was just as exciting and interesting as the characters he played in movies, and his marriages showed how complicated and passionate he was as a man who lived life to the fullest both when cameras were rolling and when they weren't. His first marriage was to an actress and singer named Lita Barron, a woman who also lived the glamorous Hollywood life and understood what it was like to be famous. They got married in 1948 when Calhoun was becoming really popular in the entertainment business. Back then, he was becoming known as one of Hollywood's most handsome leading men, acting in cowboy movies and adventure films that showed off his tough, good looks, and natural charm. Lita was known for being musical and being in movies too. She often went with him to fancy events. Together they were one of Hollywood's most good-looking and talked-about couples after the war. They had 3 daughters named Cindy, Tammy, and Lori, and Calhoun loved them very much. even though his busy career meant he wasn't home a lot. But being famous and Calhoun's reputation for charming women eventually caused problems in their marriage. Hollywood gossip writers often wrote stories connecting him to the actresses he worked with. Even though some of these stories weren't completely true, they hurt his family life. By the late 1960s, their marriage had serious problems that couldn't be fixed. In 1969, Lita Barron publicly said that Calhoun cheating on her was why they were separating, which was a brave thing to do back then. She even said in interviews that she could forgive a lot of things but not being lied to. That statement made big headlines and showed people what was really happening behind their perfect-looking life. After being together for more than 20 years, their marriage officially ended in 1970. Closing the chapter on one of Hollywood's longest relationships from the golden days, even though his first divorce was painful, Calhoun didn't stop believing in love. In 1971, he found love again with Sue Rhodes, a British journalist who loved not just his movies, but also his humor and kindness. This relationship was a different part of Calhoun's life, a more grown-up and calm time. Unlike his marriage to Lita, which happened while everyone in Hollywood was watching and writing about them, his relationship with Sue was more private and quiet. They respected each other deeply, and Calhoun's friends often said that Sue helped make his life more stable and peaceful. Sadly, after being together for several years, their marriage had problems that led to a divorce in 1979. But they hadn't completely stopped loving each other. Being apart gave both Calhoun and Sue time to think about what they really meant to each other. The connection that brought them together in the first place never completely went away. And in a romantic twist like something from one of his movies, Rory and Sue decided to get married again in 1982. Their second marriage was calmer and more peaceful than the first one, based more on being good companions rather than being glamorous. By that time, Calhoun had mostly stopped being in the spotlight and focused on enjoying life at a slower speed. He often talked lovingly about his later years with Sue, saying he appreciated the understanding and forgiveness that getting back together brought them. For many years, people in Hollywood quietly talked about the friendship and competition between two of the most famous Western movie stars ever, Rory Calhoun and Randolph Scott. Both men represented tough masculinity, charm, and that old-fashioned cowboy way of doing things that defined the best years of Western movies. But even though they had similar careers and knew a lot of the same people, the public almost never heard Calhoun talk about Scott. That is, until now. In a rare and very honest interview he gave late in his life, Calhoun finally decided to share his real feelings about Randolph Scott. The man he respected, felt jealous of, and sometimes quietly competed with. Randolph Scott, Calhoun started, was the kind of man you just had to admire. He acted with this quiet respect for himself, like he was born riding horses. Even when cameras weren't rolling, he had that cowboy gracefulness that most of us tried to act like. For him, it was just who he really was. Calhoun's voice got softer when he talked about Scott's presence on screen, explaining that his calm confidence had a big impact on other actors in Western movies. He wasn't loud, he didn't brag, and he didn't need to. You could feel the respect in the room when he walked in. He didn't have to force people to respect him. He earned it naturally. But Calhoun also admitted there was a hidden feeling of competition between them. We were both leading men, both tall, both trying to become successful in a business that didn't have space for too many cowboys at the same time. I'll be honest, I was jealous of how easy everything seemed for him. He made being a star look simple, and that used to make me so frustrated when I was younger. Calhoun laughed as he remembered his early struggles trying to be as good as Scott. I was out there working incredibly hard to prove myself, and Randolph would just stand there, tip his hat, say 3 words, and be the best part of the whole scene. Even with the competitive feelings, Calhoun said there was no real anger, only respect. Randolph wasn't the type to be mean or sneaky. Actually, he was one of the nicest men I ever met in this town. Hollywood can be a really mean place where people try to hurt each other to get ahead. You learn that quickly. But Scott never let that nastiness affect him. He treated everyone from producers to background actors with the same respect. That taught me a lot about what kind of man I wanted to be. Calhoun also thought about how Randolph Scott's life away from cameras interested him. He lived quietly, didn't care much about being in the spotlight, and that always impressed me. The movie studios wanted him at every party, every movie opening, but he liked his ranch and his horses better. That's a special thing. A man in this business who doesn't need everyone clapping for him. He stopped and thought for a moment before adding, maybe that's why audiences believed in him. He wasn't faking who he was. He really was that person. When asked if Scott ever gave him advice during their years in Hollywood, Calhoun smiled like he knew something special. He wasn't the kind of person to sit you down and give long talks, but he showed you how to be by his actions. He once told me, Rory, don't ever chase after fame. It runs faster than any horse, and if you catch it, it'll throw you off. Yeah, I never forgot that. He was totally right, too. The times when I chased it, I got hurt. Calhoun shared that he respected Scott even more after seeing how he got older gracefully and did things his own way. When Randolph retired, he didn't make a big deal about it. He just rode away, literally into his own kind of happy ending. No bad stories, no newspaper headlines, just peace and quiet. I respected that more than anything else. He knew when it was time to stop working, and not many of us figure that out. But Calhoun also said that part of him wished they had become closer friends. I always wanted to sit down with him, just the two of us, and tell him how much he influenced me and my career. But back in those days, you didn't say emotional things like that, especially one cowboy to another cowboy. We were too proud to say our feelings. He laughed quietly, and you could hear in his voice that he missed those times. I think he knew, though. I think he always knew how I felt. When thinking about his own place in movie history, Calhoun admitted that Scott was the bigger star in Western movies. If you ask me, every actor who ever wore a cowboy hat owes something to Randolph Scott. He made the rules for how to do it right. I just tried to ride somewhere close behind him. As the conversation was ending, Calhoun's voice got thoughtful and serious. Randolph was more than just a movie star. He was a symbol of a time when men didn't need to yell to be listened to. He taught me that real strength comes from holding back, from knowing who you are and not letting Hollywood change that about you. And that, he finished, is something I've remembered and followed every single day since then. Rory Calhoun's words showed more than just respect and admiration. They showed humility, the kind that only comes from a man looking back at his life with honesty and thankfulness. Even with all the sparkle and fame of Hollywood, Calhoun's words painted a picture of two cowboys who didn't just share the movie screen, but shared a quiet, lasting respect that represented a whole era of Western heroes. Rory Calhoun passed away on April 28, 1999, at the Providence St. Joseph Medical Center in Burbank, California. His death ended a long, exciting, and often surprising life that had lasted 76 amazing years. His death was caused by problems from emphysema and diabetes, two ongoing sicknesses that had slowly made his body weaker in his later years. Emphysema is a disease usually caused by smoking for a long time. It slowly destroys the lungs' ability to work properly, making even simple things like walking or talking feel exhausting and making it hard to breathe. Calhoun, like many men from his generation and his job, had lived a tough outdoorsman's life, smoking, drinking, and working long hours on movie sets under the hot California sun. These habits, even though they seemed normal for tough Hollywood men back then, eventually damaged his health. In his last years, Calhoun's poor health made it hard for him to be in movies anymore. But he was still loved by fans and people he worked with who admired both his talent and his toughness. He had been fighting emphysema for several years, needing medical help, and sometimes going to the hospital to manage the disease. His diabetes made things even worse, affecting his energy and how he felt overall. Even though he had health problems, people who knew him well often said that Calhoun kept his sense of humor and his dignity right up until he died. Family members, close friends, and fans continued to visit him. They saw in him a mix of old Hollywood elegance and real cowboy toughness. When he died, Rory Calhoun was 76 years old, which is a good age for someone who had lived such a daring and full life. In the early years when he was famous, not many people would have guessed that the rebellious young man who once went to prison would someday live to be a respected older member of Hollywood's Western movie world. How long he lived showed how strong and determined he was. Many people in the entertainment world honored him after he died. Remembering his professionalism, his relaxed and friendly personality on set, and the way he represented the spirit of the American frontier, both on screen and in real life.